Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carlos. We're gonna start putting a series of audio. Is an audiobook by the group Art of Living, who's very famous now worldwide for bringing yoga to people of the West and all over the world, helping them establish their own spiritual practice. And the video that we're gonna be listening to is called. It's actually an audio, but it's called Yoga Vasishta, and it's a series of 10 discs, and each disc lasts approximately 8 hours. So we're gonna start. I would suggest, and part of the weight loss program that I had was I had in mind that people would use 30-minute videos that I would do. Now I use these audios very regularly for my own meditation spiritual practice. You'll see the quality of what they speak, but it's basically the conversation between Vasishta and Rama, the prince of who the Ramayana is written after. So here we go. You can buy this, of course, online. It's an excellent audiobook, and I really wish I had it as a video as well where we could share it. But anyways, I'm going to be meditating while we listen to it.
It's foremost amongst the philosophical Ramayanas.
And
it is a conversation between sage Vasishta and Lord Rama, wherein the former enlightens the latter.
So it's the best audiobook that I have, that along with Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, which is the narration between Arjuna and Krishna, the great avatar of Vishnu. But in any case, both of the knowledge from both these great teachers of mankind kind of binds together and creates for this very interesting knowledge. Of course, this was the knowledge that very enlightened beings have. And it's really fruit of much meditation. So, for those of us that didn't have to meditate to get it, we are definitely blessed that Art of Living and ISKCON both did these audiobooks. Audiobooks are, in my preference, the way to go, and I really enjoy it. So, anyways, we are live. And off we go. So I would say ideally start meditating.
Is foremost amongst the philosophical Ramayanas.
And then just listen to it slowly.
It is a conversation between sage Vasishta and Lord Rama, wherein the former enlightens the latter on true wisdom. It gives a true understanding of the mysteries of creation. When Lord Rama was in his youth, he goes through a period of utter dissatisfaction with the world. He feels depressed and disinterested and questions the very purpose of living in this fleeting world. He doesn't feel like eating, sleeping, talking, and spent his time alone. At that time, sage Vishwamitra takes him to the great sage Vasishta and requests him to enlighten Rama. What then follows is a dialogue between sage Vasishta and Lord Rama. The main teaching of Yoga Vasishta is that everything in the world, including the things around us, is consciousness. Countless universes appear in the supreme consciousness, just like a dream, and this creation is nothing but an illusion, fabricated by the mind. All forms and things are but thought products of the supreme consciousness, Brahman, and are unreal, just like the objects in a dream. The sole Lord given importance in Yoga Vasishta is the supreme consciousness, and it doesn't show any inclination towards a personal God. All forms, including that of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, are said to be products of ignorance. Hence, we come across passages such as, the Supreme Consciousness is the father of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva and others. The infinite consciousness alone is fit to be adored and worshipped. It is the omnipresent self of all. According to Yoga Vasishta, the mind is the main culprit, which sees all multiplicity when there is only one omnipresent self. It lays emphasis on the removal of the ignorance of the mind through self-enquiry and gaining self-knowledge, wherein one truly experiences the thought, I am the Supreme Consciousness. Moksha or liberation is the total abandonment of all vasanas or mental conditioning without the least reserve. Mental conditioning is of two types, the pure and the impure. The impure is the cause of birth, whereas the pure liberates one from birth. The impure is of the nature of ego sense. These are the seeds, as it were, for the tree of rebirth. On the other hand, when these seeds are abandoned, the mental conditioning that merely sustains the body is of pure nature. Such mental conditioning exists even in those who have been liberated while living. It does not lead to rebirth, as it is sustained only by past momentum and not by the present. The duration of life can be compared to a water droplet on a leaf. Self-knowledge alone can make life fruitful. We can never repose our faith on the lifespan, but man seeks vainly to prolong his lifespan. Thereby, he earns more suffering and prolongs the period of misery and pain. Self-knowledge, which puts an end to the cycle of birth and death, is the only thing worth gaining in this world. People who live otherwise to gain other things are like donkeys. The rat called time is ever biting into our lifespan, and death is keeping a close watch on this lifespan without any respite. This world appearance is a confusion, even as the blueness of the sky is an optical illusion. It is better not to let the mind dwell on it, but to ignore it. Neither freedom from sorrow nor realization of one's real nature is possible as long as the conviction does not arise in one that the world appearance is unreal. And this conviction arises when one studies the scripture with diligence. It is then that one arrives at the firm conviction that the objective world is a confusion of the real with the unreal. If one does not thus study the scripture, true knowledge does not arise in him even in millions of years. Without earning the grace of the Guru, one cannot halt the restlessness of the mind. Mind is never satisfied with what it gets and becomes more and more unsteady by the day. As a sieve can never be filled with water, mind can never reach a fulfilled state, irrespective of the number of worldly objects it acquires. Mind manifests itself through desires. In the mind filled with the darkness of cravings, many vices keep moving. Desire is like a mad horse, which makes the mind run in different directions in a matter of few moments. Desire renders the mind as a mad donkey, which does not remain at a place for any length of time. The dreadful ghost called desire is the main cause of man's bondage and misfortune. This ghost does not allow man to even enjoy the pleasures which are with his immediate reach. Desire leads to all kinds of sorrows and pain. Desire can be removed by discarding the thoughts of objects. The thought that the object gives some kind of pleasure is the main reason for desiring it. Hence, by removing such a thought, one can remove desires altogether. Enlightened masters cut asunder their cravings with the sword of self-knowledge.
Bereft of the grace earned through the service of the holy ones, the impure mind stuff remains restless as the wind. It is dissatisfied with whatever it gets and grows more and more restless by the day. The sieve can never be filled with water, nor can the mind ever reach the state of fulfillment, however much of worldly objects one acquires. The mind flits in all directions all the time, but is unable to find happiness anywhere. Unmindful of the possibility of repeating great suffering in hell, the mind seeks pleasure here. But even that it does not get. Like the lion in a cage, the mind is ever restless, having lost its freedom, yet not happy with its present state.
We are dissipating our lives in various ways instead of striving to reach the Supreme. People wail aloud that they are suffering and they are destitute. But no one sincerely turns away from the source of the suffering and destitution. What is the use of wealth or of mothers and relations? What is the use of the kingdom? And what is the use of ambition in this world? Every attachment leads to sorrow. What is called as happiness cannot be had with the impermanent objects of this world. All beings are born but to die, and they die to be born again. There is no meaning in these ever-changing phenomena, which are the root causes of sorrow and suffering. Living beings who are unconnected and unrelated to each other come together. The mind then makes these separate beings appear as related to each other. Everything is conjured up by the mind. The mind itself is unreal, but we are cast into a spell by it. We are running after a mirage in the desert to satisfy our thirst. We act as bonded slaves to a master called mind and live a life of slavery without any freedom. Ignoring the truth, we have been roaming this dense forest called the world. And what is this world? Who am I? Is the world real or unreal? Who takes birth, lives and dies? How can our sorrows come to an end? Wealth, which is fleeting in nature, gives rise to numerous worries and tensions. Wealth and happiness cannot coexist. Man's craving for wealth can never be fully satisfied, as he continues to crave for more and more wealth. People are good and friendly only as long as their passions for wealth remain unfulfilled. Wealth renders impure even the heart of a grateful and soft-spoken person. Wealth is like a night to the lotus of righteousness, moonlight to the white lotus of sorrow, and a storm to the lamp of good insight and understanding. It is a flood to the wave of enmity. Wealth gives birth to a serpent of evil thoughts, which adds fear to unhappiness. Wealth hides the moon of wisdom and shrinks the good nature of a person. Wealth is sought by people who are already chosen by death. Ahankara or egotism is another enemy of wisdom. Ignorance is the main reason for egotism, and it flourishes in ignorance. Egotism gives birth to never-ending sinful thoughts and tendencies. All sufferings revolve around egotism. Egoism alone leads to unhappiness. Egoism is like a disease which destroys virtue and equanimity. Egotism is the sole cause of all disturbances found in this world. Whatever is achieved as a result of egotism is worthless and imaginary, as non-egotism is alone the reality. One who is under the influence of egotism can never be happy. To lead a happy life, one should be free from egotism. Egotism leads to false cravings.
It is really when the mind stuff is enveloped by craving that innumerable errors arise in the darkness of ignorance thus caused. This craving dries up the good and noble qualities of the mind and heart, like sweetness and gentleness of disposition, and makes it hard and cruel. In that darkness, craving in its different forms dances like a goblin. Though one adopts various methods to restrain the craving, the latter overpowers it in a moment and helplessly drives one astray, even as a gale carries away a straw. Whatever hope one entertains of developing dispassion and such other qualities, craving cuts that hope away, even as a rat snaps a thread, and one helplessly revolves caught in the wheel of craving. Like birds caught in a net, we are unable, though we have the wings for it, to fly to a goal or abode of self-knowledge. Nor can this craving be ever appeased, even if one were to quaff nectar. The characteristic of this craving is that it has no direction. It drives one in one direction now, and the very next moment it takes one away in another direction, like a mad horse. It spreads in front of us a very wide net of son, friend, wife, and other relations.
The body, composed of fibers of nerves and limbs, is also a source of pain and intensifies misery. The body, which gets delighted with little gratification and displeased with least hardship. There is nothing like the body, which is the home of illness, the field of unhappiness, and changing emotional and mental states. The body can be compared to a tree. The branches are the arms, the trunk the torso, holes are the eyes, and fruits the heads. Leaves stand for numerous illnesses. The tree called the body takes birth in the forest of samsara, or repeatedly worldly existence. The mind, which can be compared to a mad donkey, plays on it, and it is the home of crickets called worries. It is continually being fed upon by the insects of endless suffering. The wild crow, called anger, lives on it. The fruits of the tree are good and evil. It is animated by the wind of prana, or life force. The senses are the birds supported by it. It provides a traveler called desire with the worldly pleasure of shade. Egotism is the formidable vulture which sits on it. What is wealth? What is kingdom? What is body? Time devours everything and brings an end to all these in a matter of few days. Death does not discriminate between the rich and the poor. In due course of time, all attain to death. Childhood, the part of life which people ignorant regard as enjoyable and happy, is full of sorrow, helplessness, mishaps, cravings, inability to express oneself, utter foolishness, playfulness, instability, weakness. All these characterize childhood. The child is easily offended, easily roused to anger, easily bursts into tears. In fact, one may say boldly that the child's anguish is more terrible than that of a dying person, an aged man, a sick man, or any other adult. For in childhood, one's state is comparable truly to that of an animal living at the mercy of others. The child is exposed to countless happenings around it. They puzzle the child, confuse him, and arouse in him various fantasies and fears. The child is impressionable and is easily influenced by the wicked. In consequence, the child is subject to the control and punishment by its parents. Childhood seems to be a period of subjugation and nothing else. Though the child may appear to be innocent, the truth is that all sorts of defects and sinful tendencies, all kind of neurotic behavior lie hidden and dormant in it, even as an owl lies hidden in a dark hole during the daytime. What can be worse suffering than a restless mind? The child's mind is extremely restless. Unless the child gets something new every day, it is unhappy. Crying and weeping seem to be the child's foremost activity. When the child does not get what it wants, it looks as if its heart is broken. When the child goes to school, it perceives punishment in the hands of its teacher. All this adds to his unhappiness. When the child cries, its parents, in order to pacify it, promise to give it the world. From then on, the child begins to value the world and desire the world objects. The parents say, "I shall give you moon for a toy." And the child, believing their words, thinks that it can hold the moon in its hands. These are the seeds of delusion sown in the little heart. Leaving the period of childhood behind, the human being goes on to the stage of youth. But he is unable to leave the unhappiness behind. There he is subject to numerous mental modifications, and he progresses from misery to greater misery. For he abandons wisdom and embraces the terrible goblin known as lust that resides in his heart. His life is full of desire and anxiety. They who have not been robbed of their wisdom in their youth can withstand any onslaught. What is worse still, that it is during youth that one indulges in such actions that brings unhappiness to many others. Even as a tree is consumed by a forest fire, the youth's heart is consumed by the fire of lust. When his beloved leaves him, however much he may strive to develop purity of heart, the youth's heart is strained with impurity. Even when his beloved is not present near him, he is distracted by the thoughts of her beauty. Such a person, who is full of cravings, is naturally not held in high esteem by the good men. Youth is the abode of diseases and mental distress. It can be compared to a bird whose wings are good and evil acts. Youth is like a sandstorm that disperses and dissipates one's good qualities. Youth arouses all sorts of evils in the heart and suppresses the good qualities that may exist there. It is thus the promoter of evil. It gives rise to delusion and attachment. Though youthfulness appears to be very desirable to the body, it is destructive to the mind. In youth, the man is tempted by the mirage of happiness, and in his pursuit he falls into the well of sorrow. In his youth, man is a slave of sexual attraction. In the body, which is no more than the aggregate of flesh, blood, bone, hair and skin, he perceives beauty and charm. Even if this beauty is permanent, there is some justification to the imagination, but, alas, it does not last very long. On the contrary, very soon the flesh that contributed to the attractiveness, the charm and beauty of the beloved is first transformed into ugliness of old age and later consumed by fire, worms or vulture. By this is the creation maintained. When this attraction ceases, this samsara also ceases. When the child is dissatisfied with its childhood, youth takes over. When the youth is plagued by dissatisfaction and frustration, old age overpowers it. How cruel is life! Even as wind tosses a dewdrop from a leaf, old age destroys the body. Even as a drop of poison, when it enters the system, soon pervades it, senility soon pervades the entire body and breaks it down and makes it the laughingstock of other people. Though the old man is unable to satisfy his desires physically, the desires themselves flourish and grow. He begins to ask himself, "Who am I? What should I do?" etc. What should I do when it is too late for him to change his life's course, alter his lifestyle, or make his life more meaningful? With the onset of senility, all the distressing symptoms of a physical breakdown like cough, white hairs, hard breathing, and emaciation manifest themselves.
Time is the rat that destroys the threads of the entire cloth called life. Everything in the world is devoured by time. All enjoyments in this world are delusions, like the lunatic's enjoyment of the taste of fruits reflected in a mirror. All the hopes of a man in this world are consistently destroyed by time alone. Time wears everything out in this world. There is nothing in creation which is beyond its reach. Time alone creates innumerable universes. And in a very short time, time destroys everything. Time allows a glimpse of itself through its partial manifestation as the year, the age, and the epoch. But its essential nature is hidden. This time overpowers everything. Time is merciless, inexorable, cruel, greedy, and insatiable. Time is the greatest magician, full of deceptive tricks. This time cannot be analyzed, for however much it is divided, it still survives indestructible. It has an insatiable appetite for everything. It consumes the smallest insects, the biggest mountains, and even the king of heaven. Even as a young boy plays with a ball for his pastime, time uses the two balls known as the sun and the moon for its pastime. It is indeed time alone that appears as the destroyer of the universe, Rudra, the creator of the world, Brahma, the king of heaven, Indra, the lord of wealth, Kubera, and the nothingness of cosmic dissolution. It is indeed this time that successfully creates and dissolves the universe again and again. Just as even the great and mighty mountain is rooted on earth, this mighty time is also established in the absolute being.
There is also another time responsible for birth and death. It is referred to as the God presiding over death. There is an aspect of this time called Kritanta, the end of action and its inevitable result and fruition. It bestows all with their respective fruits of action. Kritanta makes everything change continuously. When the time thus dances in this universe, creating and destroying everything, what hope can we entertain? Kritanta holds sway even over those whose faith is firm and makes them restless. On account of this, everything in this world is constantly undergoing change. There is no permanency here. Neither in childhood, nor in youth, nor in old age does one enjoy any happiness. None of the objects in this world is meant to give happiness to anyone. The mind vainly seeks to find such happiness in the objects of this world. Only he is happy who is free from egotism and who is not swayed by craving for sense pleasure. But such a person is extremely rare in this world. In ignorance, man binds himself to wife, son and friends. He knows not that this world appears to be stable, even though, in fact, it is constantly changing. This world is like a poisonous tree. One who comes in contact with it is knocked unconscious and stupefied. All points of view in this world are tainted. All countries in the world are territories of evil. All the people of the world are subjective to death. All actions are deceitful. Many eons have come and gone. They are but moments in time. There is essentially no difference between an epoch and a moment, both being measures of time. From the viewpoint of the gods, even an epoch is but a moment. Even so, the whole earth is but a modification of the earth element. How futile to pin our hope and hope on it. Whatever appears to be permanent or transient in this world is all like a dream. What is a crater today was a mountain before. What is a mountain today becomes a hole in the earth in a short while. What is a dense forest today is soon transformed into a big city. What is fertile soil now becomes arid desert. Similar is the change in one's body and in one's lifestyle and fortune. This life and death cycle appears to be a skillful dancer whose skirt is made up of living souls. Her dancing gestures consist of lifting the souls up to the heaven, hurling them down in hell, or bringing them back to this earth. All the mighty deeds, even the great religious rites that are performed here, are soon consigned to one's memory. Human beings are born as animals and vice versa. Gods lose their divinity. What is unchanging here? In this world, sense objects appear to be pleasant to one only till he remembers his inevitable destruction. Just as a child playing with earth makes different designs with the clay, the ordainer of the universe keeps creating new things and destroying them soon. All things in this world are tainted with evil. All relationships are bondage. All enjoyments are great bondage. All enjoyments are great diseases. Desire for happiness is only a mirage. One's own senses are one's enemies. The reality has become unreal. One's own mind has become one's worst enemy. Egotism is the foremost cause of evil. Wisdom is weak. All actions lead to unpleasantness. Pleasure is sexually oriented. One's intelligence is governed by egotism instead of being the other way around. Hence, there is neither peace nor happiness in one's mind. Youth is fading. Company of holy ones is rare. There is no way out of this suffering. The realization of truth is not to be seen in anyone. No one is happy at the prosperity and happiness of others, nor is compassion to be found in anyone's heart. People are getting baser and baser day by day. Weakness has become strength. Cowardice has overpowered courage. Evil company is easily had. Good company is hard to come by. Time is thus driving humanity.
The surest sign of a man of highest wisdom is that he is unattracted by the pleasures of the world. In him even the subtle tendencies have ceased. When these tendencies are strong, there is liberation. He is truly a liberated sage who by nature does not get swayed by sense pleasure without the motivation of fame or other incentives.
So this is the first three sections of the first disc. We will be left for the fourth section of the first disc, and then we will continue the following disc at another time. Wish you all the best. This was the first disc of Yoga Vasista audiobook Art of Living. You can always buy it online. Have a good day.